people affected by this southern leg were basically sold out. We were thrown under the bus, and wow, the flash and bang is all about the Keystone XL. The fact that TransCanada probably planned this as a plan B or C to uncouple this southern leg, and then the president going on national television saying he was going to fast track it and cut out all the red tape so that it could happen quickly with no further environmental studies. We do. We feel sold out.
Toxic mine tailings, an open pit where the trail ends, places grandfather and I once laid a trap line, now an open pit mine for oil in the sand.
There's a Manchester community is literally surrounded by the industry, and then just to the right of it you see the Linedale Citgo. And this is sort of the beginning of Highway 225 right in here. And this industry stretches for 16 miles to the right. It's pathetic, you know, that some have to sacrifice for others to have a good way of life. And it should be that we're all entitled to a good life, clean air, a clean environment, clean water.
And a lot of the attention has been put in places where the pipeline will go through. The story about where the pipeline will end hasn't been told that well. And what we know in the Gulf is that our ecosystem has been affected. Our communities have been affected. We have fence line communities throughout 4 of the 5 Gulf states, really. And these guys pay a huge price, whether it's in asthma and other sorts of respiratory problems. As they bring down this dirty oil, it is going to be a dirtier process of refining it, which means we're going to see elevated pollution levels in areas that can't bear to see elevated pollution levels. These areas should be getting cleaned up. They shouldn't be getting dirtier.
And it's got the highest concentration of sulfur, benzene, naphthalenic acids, which is the principal ingredient of napalm, of any hydrocarbon known to man.
Because it has a lot of sand, it has a lot of lead, it has lead, nickel, and mercury. And then the processes that it takes to extract the oil from all these other substances and metals, it requires a lot more heating, a lot more water.
Diluted bitumen is completely synthetic. It's not like conventional crude where it just bubbles out of the ground. This stuff is nasty. It requires you to destroy the earth. To get tar sands, you have to strip away nearly 60 feet of the topsoil. You have to dig it up, mine it up, and then you have to boil it. You have to melt it down and dilute it with chemicals, with liquid gas condensates to make a slurry. And then that slurry is so viscous you have to heat it and blast it at high temperature, at high pressure, so that you can get it through a pipe.
Sounds are scraping, mining, raping, oil from the sand. 4 tons of earth for a barrel of oil in a blink of an eye, pristine to spoil.
Homelands, indigenous territories are being declared national disaster areas in the interest of big oil, in the interest of keeping this country sufficient in its use or need for gas and oil. So once again, our people are asked to sacrifice our land, our natural resources for the good of America or the good of Canada, to keep this country afloat or keep this country's destiny with oil and gas use.
The destruction of the land is obviously the #1 issue. with that, then you have the pollution that comes from the processing to the impacts from. They used to have 80% sustainability, and now they're down to none because all the fish, the animals, birds, everything are contaminated with cancers and growths, so they are no longer able to survive on that. So with that, then you have the higher normal rates of processed foods, of higher cancers, and also diabetes and stuff like that, those type of diseases.
It's so humiliating for this country, again, to ask First Nations, indigenous peoples, to make another sacrifice. Their homelands, their areas, their natural resources, to be declared a national disaster area.
I mean, it's tragic, right? Nobody wants their parents or their children to have any kind of cancer. But it's a reality, and it's a reality that we don't talk too much about. Instead, we talk about the economy, about the jobs, about how prosperous Houston is, and we forget all the health-related issues. We don't even do a cost analysis issues on, the impact of the industry, what it's going to cost in terms of health issues to communities.
And this unquenchable thirst for gasoline. Here it goes. For tons of earth, for a barrel of oil, in a blink of an eye, pristine to spoil. Put on the brakes to the oil machine. And this unquenchable thirst for gasoline.
I mean, the pipelines affect the ecosystem in a range of ways. Like, clearly, they leak. So, if you look at what happened in the Yellowstone River, if you look what happened in Michigan, these pipelines have horrible track records, and they have a huge, huge ecosystem impact. As they leak, they affect the watersheds that they flow through, they affect the habitat that they flow through. And what we've known here in the Gulf is that as you put in a pipeline, it's going to have a range of impacts, even if they don't leak. By carving that area through the ecosystem, you're affecting the ability of that ecosystem to heal itself.
The last line that this company built leaked 12 times in a year. So you can't tell me it's not going to leak.
They don't know what they're handling. There's no standards yet on this product. All the studies that are being done aren't even done yet. What's the kind of pipe we really need? What's the pressures that are right? Because no one's ever transported stuff across Texas before. So my problem is they're allowing these pipelines to use old technology and old methodologies that we don't even know if they really work.
TransCanada claims it has the highest rated safety record in all of the pipeline industry, but it admits that it can't detect pressure changes in its pipe up to 2%. It admits that through pinhole leaks, up to 5% of a daily capacity could escape without triggering a leak detection system. So TransCanada is willing to allow millions of gallons of this toxic tar sand to leak out of their pipeline over the lifetime of this project, right into our groundwater, right into our land, right into our local streams and creeks. They're willing to poison us. That's just the status quo. Up to 1.1 million gallons a day can leak out without triggering detection. So you can do the math. Over the 50-year expected lifespan of this pipeline, we're talking about billions of gallons of toxic slurry that could escape without detection.
We're going to end up with a catastrophe if we allow this to happen. It's ultimately going to come.
Keep the habit now. Let loose the science, let the banners unfurl. Tell all the people, tell the whole damn world. Put on
President Obama has given his blessing on this southern leg, which he thinks kind of splits the difference between what he did about stopping the full project and about the glut of oil in Cushing, Oklahoma terminal. Well, they've already started reversing lines at the Cushing terminal, lines that were bringing up product from the Gulf are now reversed, and they're bringing oil from Cushing down to the Gulf. And they're going to be laying more and larger lines in the same easements that these other lines are in. So by the end of 2013, these other companies, Seaway and Enbridge, are going to be sending at least 400,000 barrels of oil or more down the line to the Gulf, which is almost as much as Keystone was proposing to send.
Then the original route was also to go from Cushing, Oklahoma down to Port Arthur and Houston. Unfortunately, the southern portion is separated and is being constructed at this time, to which I've always said, and I believe there is case law that says you cannot separate those type of projects with since they've already been denied once, and then that it's already in the process. So I think that there's actually was a legal case on this if it's not up still, if that's not still an option.
Environmental impact study for the Keystone XL pipeline, if you read through it, it says right in there that 5.1 million barrels of oil per day are imported into Houston. 5.1 million barrels. The Keystone pipelines, when they come together in Cushing and the one line goes to the Gulf, is going to bring 700,000 to 800,000 barrels per day. So 5.1 million versus 700,000. That is not going to wean us off of foreign oil.
They kind of showed up in 2008 saying, hey, we want to put a pipeline across your land. And this wasn't the first time a pipeline asked to come across our property. 2 others have, and my dad said, we don't want a pipeline on our land. Can you find another way? Can you go around this? And they said, yeah. So they found a way that was, 100 yards on the other side of the property line, but still it wasn't on us. Right. So when TransCanada showed up, and Dad said, we'd rather you not come across our land. Can you find another way? And they said, no, we're coming across.
And it's a big corporate land grab. And to do so, rules were broken, laws were manipulated, and there's a lot of landowners that feel disenfranchised here in Texas.
And we just said no, because we have archaeological deposits in that pasture, we have water right questions. And they said, we're going to condemn your land. And the way the condemnation process works in Texas is, if we don't sign that final lease, TransCanada says, we have the power of eminent domain, even though no one in Texas really monitors that. And they went to a judge and said, Judge, you're going to condemn the Crawfords land. And they condemn it, boom. And we don't find out till after it's done. And they said, your land's been condemned by the judge, and you can come to a hearing where 3 local landowners will decide what you're going to get paid for. Well, up until that point, I've had no access to a judge. The landowner has no access to a judge before your land is condemned. Interestingly enough, the day before the judge's ruling came down, the judge's ruling came down on August the 22nd. On August the 21st, we were served with the writ of possession, meaning the courts gave TransCanada the right to the land. It was served the day before the ruling even came down, that they had the right to do that, which is very interesting. So, as far as the court's concerned, the ruling was made in their favor, and they have the right to come in and do whatever they want to do.
tar sands blockade campaign is designed to unite pipeline fighters everywhere and anywhere with landowners along the Gulf Coast segment route to put our bodies on the line and stop this pipeline using civil disobedience tactics. Nonviolent direct action is all we have left. There's not one single representative at the state or federal level in all of Texas that opposes the Gulf Coast segment. Every single elected official is in lockstep with the oil and gas industry.
Wake up, drink caffeine, you gotta wake up, clean air and fresh water. Your tar sands, we don't need them, gotta wake up, wake up, wake up.
I think that almost everyone would be against the Keystone XL Pipeline if they really understood how dangerous it is. And it's up to us to educate the public in a variety of ways, and we're going to do that, and we're going to win. We're going to win this. We're going to beat them. It reminds me of that story of the elephant and the flies. You know, this elephant kept stomping on the flies and killing them, and the flies finally got tired of it, so a bunch of them just flew up in his nose and suffocated him. And that's what we're going to do to TransCanada. We're not going to stop. We're going to use every available means. I'm a nonviolent person, and I'm not going to use violent means, but I will use every nonviolent means to stop them, and so will thousands and thousands and thousands of other people.
Wake up, super